Let's bring one in. There we go.
I was supposed to
Welcome.
bring sessions. Thank you.
Oh, we forgot to tell you about that.
Oh yeah, but I can talk. I can talk. It's no problem.
We know you can. You're good for it.
I'll take it as a compliment. Thank you.
Where are you joining from?
I'm from the Netherlands, and I saw a lot of people joining from the Netherlands as well. So that's really great.
Yeah.
Goedemiddag to all. But of course, all the other people as well. I'm really excited to be here.
We are
We're
so excited to have you.
Thank you.
So did you just say good
afternoon?
Good afternoon. Yeah. Exactly.
Good morning.
Yeah.
That's good morning. I think it's close to your good morgen or so. Well, I'm not.
Yeah. Actually, gomiddag is pretty close.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
it's like I watched, it was a while ago, and I'm going to totally derail this already. I watched this Swedish show. I can't remember even which one. I think I've watched a couple, and it's like so close to like Dutch. It's kind of annoying that I have the feeling I can understand it, but I really can't. So it's Anyway,
we have the same thing. As long as you only have it in written form, we can manage. But as soon as you open your mouth, we're lost.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same for you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Swedish chef.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I see you already shared your screen, so everything is all set up. It's almost like you've done this before.
Yeah, it's a couple of times.
All right, I think we are on time.
Yeah.
So let's
take it away, Gerald.
Yeah. Let's keep it that way. All right. Thank you so much. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That was already said. Depending on where you're from, for me, it's goedemiddag. It's afternoon here. I'm joining you from the Netherlands. And I'm going to be the first session of this amazing event. I somehow missed the first installment, but I'm glad to be here for the second one. Did you see that lineup? It's going to be amazing. I don't even know what I'm doing here. We have James, we have Maddie, we have Dan Roth, who kind of like invented Blazor as well. So it's going to be too amazing. So it's going to be amazing. So I could kind of like do two things. I could either stick to kind of introduction for .NET MAUI and not give away too much, or I could just steal their thunder and also talk a little bit about Blazor and basically give away everything that you're going to see already today, and you can go on with your day, right? So let's see how far I can get in 25 minutes. So, as you might have already gotten, my name is Gerald. My pronouns, he, him, his, and my Twitter is on there as well. I just tweeted before I started this session that I was struggling to get my demos up and running because, as you might imagine, well, actually, I work at Microsoft for people who might not be aware, and I work on the actual .NET MAUI team. So, I am working with the latest bits that are not even public yet, and that sometimes messes up my whole configuration. So, I was working to get it all done. I actually pulled out another laptop which has like the preview bits, and that one seems to still work. So we'll see how that goes. If you want to reach out later and you have some case that is not ready for the public, generally I love to have the questions in public so other people can jump in and you're not stuck waiting for me. So use Twitter for that or some other thing where you can find me. I'm everywhere basically. But if you have something that you're not comfortable with in public, please find my email and go that way. And I also try to do some things on YouTube with a little channel where it's mostly Xamarin and .NET MAUI as well. Sneak in some Blazor by now, I think. So, if that's something that you like, please feel free to subscribe there as well. But now on to the main event, because I only have 25 minutes, so I have to talk fast. What is .NET MAUI? Well, basically, it's the evolution of Xamarin Forms. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about, what is .NET MAUI for developers who are new to this space, but also a little bit about, if you're coming from Xamarin Forms, what it's all about. So what is Xamarin Forms then? Xamarin Forms has been our offering for creating cross-platform apps on iOS, Android, UWP based on C# and .NET. You probably at least know at some level what it's doing, right? So simply put, you can write apps on all the platforms that I just mentioned, primarily iOS, Android, and UWP, but also Tizen Linux. You could even do WPF, macOS, all based on C# and .NET, which is really crazy if you think about it. You do not have to leave your favorite ecosystem. You could use all the stuff that you love, and you can still write for all these platforms. Now, I don't know if this story is true or not, but I like to believe it is. But Xamarin Forms was kind of like mostly designed with that in mind, right? Forms, simple data entry applications, just a couple of entry fields, a couple of buttons, and that was, if we look at the website from like early on, this is from the actual Xamarin website, maybe even before it was acquired by Microsoft. Xamarin Forms is best for this, that. Even if we do not look at like what the text is in here, and we just look at like the above slides, it's just a couple of boring entry fields, right? And then the bottom one, Xamarin iOS, Xamarin Android, are best for, I don't know, what do we see? A media player, games, maps. I mean, they're just trying to make Xamarin Forms boring, and that's kind of like an image we didn't really get rid of, right? So it's time to do better, because Xamarin Forms can do so much more. People started loving it, people discovered it, and people decided that we could do so much more. And actually, there are games out there in the App Store right now for Android and iOS that are doing great, which look great, which are built with Xamarin Forms. But it's time to kind of grow out of that boring name and show the true potential. So now we're going into .NET MAUI, which stands for .NET Multi-Platform App UI. And conveniently, we've made the P kind of lowercase because .NET MAUI just doesn't have the same ring to it, right? .NET MAUI is much more fun. So with .NET MAUI on the outside, will be 90% the same as Xamarin Forms. You can still do cross-platform apps based on C# .NET for iOS, Android, Windows, and macOS. So that's interesting, right? If we see, like for the top, Xamarin Forms, we look at iOS, Android, and UWP, but now we've changed that to iOS, Android, Windows, and macOS. So the desktop targets are in there as well, even macOS. And we've changed UWP to Windows because UWP is discontinued. I don't know what the right term is. Sunset is always a nice term for it, right? It's at least there's not coming new stuff to that. So UWP is not really a thing anymore. Now we're into WinUI, and you can base that on kind of different things. So we're adopting the WinUI stuff, and .NET MAUI allows you to write apps on top of iOS, Android, Windows by WinUI, and macOS. And macOS kind of works through the Mac Catalyst stuff. So if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. You'll find out whenever you start working with that. So all of this captured in kind of one sentence is .NET MAUI is the most productive way to develop native apps that perform great on any device that runs Android, iOS, macOS, or Windows from a single code base. Now, that sounds good. And actually, before I forget, we used to have this slogan for Xamarin Forms, which was something like everything you can do in Objective-C and Swift and Java for Android, you could do with Xamarin Forms in C# and .NET. And that is still very true for .NET MAUI. Even, if some API is not serviced to .NET MAUI, we have a lot of ways to reach into the platform code, the platform APIs, and you can still run that code if that's what you want. So how does that all work? How is this kind of like how is this able to do its magic, basically? So everything starts with your app code, right? That is the code where you want to live. That is the code that you want to write. That is your $1 million app idea. That is what's going to make you rich. That's what's going to make this app a success. So that's where you want to spend most of your time, right? And you want to roll out on like one or probably two of these platforms that you see at the bottom, at least, right? Or maybe you have plans in the future. Because if you're just going to write for one, and you're always going to write for iOS, then there's not really a point in using this, right? I'm going to be totally honest. I wish you use this. I want you to use this. But if you're going to know that this is only going to be iOS, then you can also choose Objective-C or Swift. But anyway, what we can do, we kind of have all these layers in between you and your app code and rolling out all of this awesomeness. So it starts with all the SDKs for all the platforms, right? So we have Android with Java, we have iOS with Objective-C or Swift, macOS, kind of like the same story, and Windows already with C#, right? So, and from there, what we put on top of that is like a bunch of other layers from, but you don't really need to worry about that. You'll see. So we have the .NET runtime. That is like, what's going to interpret all the C# code and IL and whatnot, and that's going to actually run the thing. Technically, if you want to get into the specifics, this still uses Mono for a couple of platforms here. And of course, on Windows, it just uses the .NET runtime because it lives there, right? That's where it's invented. So on top of that, it doesn't really matter because now we've introduced this single .NET base class library. So everything is going through that BCL regardless of the platform, and that will figure out if it needs to go through Mono or like the .NET runtime that is already there on Windows. On top of that, we have created bindings because that's kind of like where the magic of Xamarin is happening, right? But I can't say Xamarin anymore because that it's going away. So that's where the magic for .NET for Android and .NET for iOS is going to happen because we've created bindings for like all the APIs. For all the platform-specific APIs, right? And we've created wrappers for that in C# to allow you to write C# on .NET, but still use all the APIs, 100% of the APIs that are on Android, iOS, and of course, WinUI as well. Now, the final thing that we're going to add here is .NET MAUI, and that's kind of like the only thing, at least that's our goal. That's the only thing that you should know besides kind of like your app code, how to work with, and then we can smash everything together. And this is kind of like the thing that you need to do to roll out one app for all these platforms. So what do we have? I already said it's kind of like the evolution of Xamarin Forms. We have been working with Xamarin Forms for like 7-8 years. I don't know, something like that, which is really amazing. So there's already a lot in the box, right? But we're not just doing that copy and paste. Like for the outside APIs, 90% is going to be the same. So if you're already used to that, that is going to be awesome. If you're not used to that and you come from like UWP or WPF, it's going to feel really familiar as well because it's mostly based on XAML. You can use C# if that's what you want. But there's already a lot in the box that we put into a different architecture that will allow us to do more crazy and awesome things in the future. But because of the whole history, we also have a lot of code that we could kind of like easily transform into what we want to have in .NET MAUI. So that means we already have 40 plus controls. We have all these crazy amounts of controls. We have navigations with flyout menus that you might know from the hamburger menu, bottom tabs, top tabs, regular hierarchical navigation, adaptive layouts, which are more important than ever if we want to switch between the viewport of a mobile device and a desktop, right? We have better support for right to left. We have better support for accessibility. That has a big focus from us as well, because if we get our accessibility story right, it's easier for you to implement accessibility as well, and everyone wins, right? Because everyone will have better apps that they can use. So I thought I hid this slide. Doesn't really matter. So this is, some of the controls right here that you might already know if you've been working with Xamarin Forms. But you have the carousel view where you can swipe between all these items, a collection view to just show kind of like the boring items list, right? And all the other crazy things here, maps, table views, all the things that you need to create a app are here. So what does that look like? Like I said, if you know XAML, either from WPF, UWP, there is a little dialect change in here. So some things are named a little bit different. Also, if you're coming from Xamarin Forms, we had the ability to make some breaking changes right now. And so we did. We think it's for the better. So, you might run into some naming things here and there, but of course, IntelliSense and Visual Studio will help you with that. But you could do this in XAML. It will have all the bits for XAML, C#. You can do it in C# as well, and use MVVM because that's kind of like typical Microsoft, right? And if you want to, use C#, then you might want to look into the C# markup extensions because just writing C# to create your markup is kind of painful right now. But with the C# markup extensions, which are in the Xamarin community toolkit today, and also in the .NET MAUI community toolkit, you can write kind of like in a more fluent syntax your UI, which is pretty cool if you're into that kind of stuff. What we're also kind of exploring is more MVU style. So that's kind of like as opposed to MVVM. Which is like, from other frameworks like Swift UI, which is actually the iOS one, or Flutter, kind of like the MVU style applications. For that, you can turn to Comet, which is experimental right now. Of course, we still have also all kinds of options for styling. You can do it through XAML or CSS. We have a visual state manager. Depending on the state of a control, you can apply a certain style. Of course, we have everything in the box to support light mode and dark mode as well. So everything for that is in there, and you can create cool looking apps with all the things that come out of the box. Now, this is something that you are probably very happy with if you're coming from Xamarin Forms, because if you're coming from Xamarin Forms and you know a little bit about the old architecture, that were all renderers. So that was very tightly coupled between the controls in our abstraction layer in Xamarin Forms. And you kind of had to know a lot about the renderers and how they worked to actually customize them. We don't do that anymore. We have the handler architecture now with mappers. So, if you're seeing this for the first time, you probably want to dive in and get a feel for it yourself. But this is basically all the code that I need to use now to remove the underline in an Android app, right? So we have this ifdef for platforms, for different platforms. Personally, I hate it. I'm going to be honest, I hate it. So there's other ways to do this. But, if you want to do it this way, you totally can. You can access these handlers from anywhere. They're static, so you can just access them from anywhere in your application. You can bundle them nicely in some CS file that you'd never want to look at again. And then in these mappers, you can either append or prepend or modify the mapper altogether. The mappers are kind of like our implementation of what we thought how these controls should look like. But you can append something to it. So, whenever we .NET MAUI did all of our mapping things, we are mapping all the properties to like the platform counterparts. And you think like, hey, I want to tweak this little thing afterwards. You can, or if you want to prepend something to that list or modify and replace the mapper altogether, that's something you can totally do. So this is much, much easier than working with the custom renderers. Now, another thing that we did is Microsoft.maui.graphics, which is kind of like the .NET MAUI layer, but now for the graphics, for the drawing libraries. So you can do all these kinds of things, and you can access the platform drawing libraries, but now from an abstract layer. So, whenever you do a line or I don't know what, I'm not too familiar with this stuff, to be honest, because I'm a terrible designer. But you can do all these kinds of things, and it will translate that to the platform APIs for you. So you will have that unified API to work with, and you can still get these amazing results, as you can see in the image right here. Now, I see the time's going so fast. So we have a lot about the project system improvements as well. And I'm going to just show you that in Visual Studio so that we also have some hands-on stuff here. But we basically moved everything from these 3 projects. If you have been working with Xamarin Forms, this is very familiar to you. We have 3 projects. One is the shared code, one is for Android, one is for iOS. And we've managed now to put that all in one project so that you just have this single project, which is multi-targeted to all the targets that you want to have. You can still write platform-specific code with all kinds of magic that is in there. But most importantly, you can now share all the resources. Again, if you've been working with cross-platform app, this is like, a big pain because you have to supply all these images in different resolutions and different formats for iOS and then for Android and then for Windows. So that was always a big hassle. Now you just add this image once to the single project, and we will sort out like how to scale it. So ideally, you will do it in an SVG, how to scale it for all the platforms, all the things, and it will work automatically. Same thing for fonts. And then just from the run menu, you select, do I want to run this on an iPhone, a Android device, or Windows? And it will sort out all the bits automatically and start running that for you. Now, also, again, if you've been working with cross-platform development, you know that the deployment and all that stuff can take a long time. So there's big investments in like XAML hot reload, where you can just change your XAML on your running application, either on a physical device or emulator, and the changes will automatically pop up on there so that, you don't have to stop and start your debugging session again. Also, we have hot restart. Not many people know about this, but with hot restart, you can debug your iOS app from a Windows machine. Just plug it in your physical iOS device in a Windows machine. You will have to have a paid Apple developer account and iTunes installed and a physical iOS device, but then you can debug your iOS applications from Windows. And you still have to create some kind of certificate and whatnot, but there's ways to do that without having to buy an expensive Mac, right? So that is something really cool as well. And of course, we have the remote iOS simulator. If you did buy a Mac and that's on your network, you can just pull up the iOS simulator within Windows. You have touchscreen support if you have a Surface Book of some kind, and you can just touch it and do all the things. It's really amazing. We also have .NET MAUI Essentials, so Xamarin Forms Essentials. No, I should say Xamarin Essentials. It works without Xamarin Forms, but that is now part of .NET MAUI as well. So all the APIs that you know and love are just there. I don't think much has changed about the API, so you should be able to just copy and paste your code basically and use that in your current apps. Now, another thing that I'm really, really happy about, and I'm already seeing that I don't have time to show you this, so I'm just going to talk about it a little bit here, is Blazor Hybrid. We have the Blazor web view now as an element. And you can just pick up your Blazor application or maybe your Blazor class libraries, the shared code, or your Blazor components from third parties that you've already bought from Progress, Telerik, that we're going to see a couple of sessions from today as well. You could just use that in your Blazor web view. And a Blazor web view can live in a .NET MAUI app, a WinForms app, a WPF app. So it's a great way to either create a fully hybrid app, or because it's just another component that you can place somewhere in your layout from a .NET MAUI app or a WinForms app, you can just modernize that little piece of your app and start building from there, basically. It's the kind of like hybrid is kind of like throwing you off, because actually it's not like interpreted through the web view, or there's not some web server spun up to actually run this thing. It actually runs natively because you have all of .NET available on your device, right? So it doesn't have to go through WebAssembly. It doesn't have to do all those things. It just looks like the web UI, which is great for some people if you come from the web development world. But you can mix that with native stuff as well. So that's really awesome. I really encourage you to check that out, but I think there will be some content on that today as well. Something else that we're exploring is kind of like the drawn controls. So if you know Xamarin Forms and .NET MAUI, then our paradigm is to translate all of our abstracted controls, so our button, our label, all the things, to whatever that is, how it's supposed to look like on that platform, right? But we definitely also heard a lot of people about Flutter. Let's just name it. It always hurts a little bit. No, I'm kidding. Flutter, where everything is drawn, right? And I think each of those approaches definitely have pros and cons, like always. But it's definitely something that we're exploring as well. On top of .NET MAUI graphics that I just mentioned, we also have .NET MAUI controls, graphics controls, where we try to draw all the controls and see if that's something that people are interested in or we can use or whatever, which will be in addition to .NET MAUI, basically. So that's definitely something as well. Go to the repository if that's something that you're interested in. Go play with it. Leave a star, leave some issues if you get to play with it and find something. All that engagement will help us see if this is something that we could investigate or not. So let's quickly go over to the demos that I've worked so hard on to actually, get them working. I'm not sure if this is the right machine, but we'll see. It's the wrong password, so it should be the right machine then, which is interesting. Yeah, there we go. And here we are in Visual Studio. So at the time that you're watching this, or maybe you're watching the recording, but at this time of recording, you're going to have to use Visual Studio 2022 preview. Preview 6 is just out, I think. So that's version 17.1 preview 6. There's a lot in there, but you need to have the preview version. That will have the .NET MAUI workload. So if I just pull up the installer, maybe I should have done that already, then it's going to show that there is a update, because like I said, I took out some machine that was still working, but it doesn't have all the latest bits. So you can see that this is preview 2, and it's probably going to pop up with preview 6 somewhere here. But if you go to modify, this is the screen that you will see whenever you start installing Visual Studio. And then where you want to go is here, the mobile development with .NET. It has the Xamarin logo for now. Maybe that already changed in newer updates. But you want to make sure to check that. And then here in the lower corner, that you want to do the .NET MAUI preview right here, so that you have the workload installed, right? And then you should have everything to get started with .NET MAUI yourself. I try to, maybe I need to go back here. Okay, there we go. So whenever you do, you can do file new project. You can do a new .NET MAUI application, which is what I've done here. And you just have this hello world template, basically, which exists of this thing. Let me just run it on the Windows machine. So again, if you come from like a XAML kind of dialect world, then you feel right at home with like a scroll view, a grid, a label. And you can already see, if you're used to Xamarin Forms, that we've done some investments in like the accessibility, right? So this comes now out of the box checkbox, semantic properties heading level, with which you can specify like people who are, impaired with their visuals. You can see, you can kind of guide them through your application with the semantic properties. It's a whole world to discover there. So I would encourage you to do that, to make your apps accessible with this as well. It's not that much overhead with all the properties that we've introduced here. Kind of like this description, this is something that would be read out loud whenever you're kind of like using a screen reader. So that's like really, really awesome. You just need this one property and it will make so much difference for people that actually use this. So that is awesome. Go do that. Now, if we go look at this, so a couple of labels, a button, an image, and you can see that translates into this on Windows, and it's a counter. So, nothing too exciting, but it will get you started. And I think this .NET bot is actually an SVG, so that's really cool. And now, whenever we want to do that little hard restart, we also have .NET Hard Reload. So you can not just change the kind of the visuals right here with XAML, where I say, do I actually have the live preview working here as well? Oh, I do. So this is also something new, XAML live preview, where you can kind of see the live preview here, so you don't have to switch around between the windows like I just did, but you can see the preview here as well. But I don't know. Oh, zoom. I don't know how to really work with this yet. I don't really use it that much. So here we are, we see the same window. And whenever I say, okay, our button, I think this is styled through a style right now, but if I say background color is red, then hopefully whenever I save this, it should pop up as red as well. For some reason, it doesn't. So my demos are not completely working, but I think this one works. So watch this. That would be the XAML hard reload. Maybe I need to press this. Let's see what happens. Nothing happens. Cool. But whenever that should typically work. So maybe it's because of the updates or something like that, probably. But the XAML should update automatically. But what's even maybe cooler is that you can now also change code. So whenever we click the counter button, this little thing is triggered. And we can just do count ++, but we can also do plus is 10. Let's save that. Let's click the hot reload button again here. And whenever we do that, now you can see that it does 10 at a time, right? So you don't really need to stop your debugging experience. You can just leave it running. And for Windows, it's pretty fast. But if we're going to go into Android or iOS, then running this is going to take a little bit longer. So let me actually just try Android right now while I talk you through a little bit of the rest. I'm already going over time. I'm sorry, Jimmy and Jessica. Let me connect to... I hope I have that here. 1, 2, 7, 1, 5, 2, 6. It's not working. I have the Windows subsystem for Android on here, but it's not running currently, probably. So actually, I'm also connected to my Mac. Let's just try this one. I'm connected to my Mac build host, so I'm able to see all the emulators on here, and I can just select one and start with that. So let's see if I can get that up before our session is completely over. While I walk you through like the single project right here, so you can see I have just this one project. And whenever we go into the platforms here, so this used to be different projects, but now it's all in one project, but just different folders. And I can just put a new file in here, and suddenly I can write Android code, which is really amazing. But there's also the files here that are used for like the metadata for your app, because at the end of the day, we still have to provide an AAB file or an IPA file to provide to the App Store, right? It's not like Apple's going to say, okay, just send me an exe, we'll figure it out. That's not going to work. So you can just do that here in the platforms folder. And basically everything that's outside of these platforms folders is shared code. So that's where you want to have most of your code, right? Or in a new project where you can link all your code and reuse that between your Blazor application and your other desktop application or whatever you might have lying around. So we also have the resources here. Like I said, you can just share the fonts in here, and you can just start using those whenever you add them in here. Images, you can see it's all SVG, so that scales and does automatically. And that's what's even cooler. If we go in here in our CS proj, So there is definitely going to be tooling for this in Visual Studio, but right now, it's all preview. It's coming out in Q2 2022. But you can see this MAUI icon and MAUI splash screen, which is really cool. That are just ways for you to customize your app icon that you will see like on the home screen of your device. And the splash screen, you can just say, hey, I want to have this SVG that will be centered on the screen. I want it to have this background color, and you will have a splash screen out of the box. So that is really, really amazing and much, much easier than having to deal with platform-specific stuff like you had to do with Xamarin Forms. I'm not able to get the simulator up and running by now, I see, but you'll believe me, the iOS simulator would come up and it would look amazing. So I had a lot more, but I'm already over time. So I think I saw a nice bit of activity in the chat. So Jimmy and Jessica probably have some questions for me. Let me just very, very quickly go over to like .NET MAUI plus Blazor, best of both worlds. I already talked about that. So there's probably going to be some content for that later today as well. And you probably are now like, yes, I want to start this. I want to go home. Wait, you're already home and do all these things. Punch a hole in your monitor. Please don't do that. There is some other things that I want you to know before you can explore on your own. Questions that I get a lot is like, when or should I use .NET MAUI Blazor? When or should I use .NET MAUI? Or when should I use Blazor? And the answer to that is simply yes. Because you can basically, you can mix and match all of those things. You can just, depending on where you're coming from, maybe you're just a simple, that's condescending. Maybe you're just a .NET developer that does not have experience with Xamarin Forms or cross-platform. That is fine. Now you can get connected with that. Because I didn't even talk about like the generic build host that we are now like mimicking from ASP.NET. So if you're coming from ASP.NET, that will feel very familiar as well. If you're coming from Blazor, you can go ahead and start with .NET MAUI Blazor and do all those things. So, you can go either way with this, and it's going to be really amazing. Try it out. If you can't figure it out, please contact me. All these resources, all these things, I will probably tweet out a link to the slides, or it will be provided through the website. So thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much. And Jessica, Jimmy, let me know what's going on in the chat.
A lot.
Great.
A lot is going on in the chat. Let's see.
Here we are, back all together. Great.
Back all together. Here we go. First question. What will happen to the Xamarin Forms monkey? We all want to know.
That might be the most important question.
Yeah, probably. So I have a lot. I think it's a bit blurred, but I have like this one, or one with the city hat, or one with a different T-shirt on. But so that's kind of like the sad thing, right? I think that's sad for most people who are around since like Xamarin and Xamarin Forms. That branding is going away, which I think was to be expected. Whenever Xamarin was acquisitioned by Microsoft, it's sad because it had such a nice vibe and a really, really great community. So I'm hoping some of that will stay alive during our transition to .NET MAUI, but kind of like the specific branding, just like ASP.NET doesn't really have their separate branding, that is all going away, sadly. So go buy your monkeys while you still can.
So no specific Xamarin parties at Build either. As in the good old times.
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, we can't predict the future. As long as there are still some people from like the old community, we can probably make something happen, even if it's informal. But kind of like the formal branding is going away. And that's also kind of like exciting, right? Like I used to think in terms of like people transitioning from Xamarin Forms to .NET MAUI. But it's also very different, right? This is like the new UI framework from Microsoft. So there's also a lot of new people that are coming in that are going to see this for the first time, and not just the people who are going to look at this from like, I'm coming from Xamarin Forms and what has changed, but also a lot of people that will just see this for the first time, and hopefully they will have a great experience and be able to do even more, write cross-platform apps and make their code go to places where it hasn't gone before. So
I like it. Ready for another one?
Yeah, sure.
What are the significant advantages of .NET MAUI over such monsters as Electron and React Native? I don't know about monster part, though.
So to be very honest, I don't know all the specifics there, and I think it comes down a lot as well to like especially React Native. That's more like for the people who are familiar with JavaScript, right? I mean, that's how I like to go about it, is to joke and make kind of fun of like the other frameworks, but each of them has a place, right? I don't think at the end of the day there's going to be one winner and that's what everyone's going to do. That's also not something that we should want. We should learn from each other, and there's a place for each of them. And also like React Native, if you're coming from JavaScript, that will feel much more at home for you. You can do all the things that you know and love from there already, and at the end of the day, you'll still have a native app that runs on all these platforms, right? So that is amazing. If that works for you, that's cool. But there's also a lot of developers who love C# and .NET. I think, with React Native, I'm not really sure. And to be very, very honest, like with Xamarin Forms, we also had our share of performance issues, or at least, performance could be better. Let's put it like that. That has a big focus for .NET MAUI. And I think kind of like for Electron, that is kind of like notorious, I think, for having not such great performance in terms of like eating your RAM and making your fans blow. So I think for that, we don't have all the stuff to actually host all the JavaScript and host all these things, right? We don't need that. We don't need a Chrome instance to host all of our JavaScript things like Electron. That's kind of like what I wanted to say with like Blazor. That's like, we don't need the WebAssembly parts. We don't need an actual Blazor. We're already running in .NET. So we don't need all that overhead. So I think in terms of like, what are the advantages? At least if you're looking at that scenario, I think the performance there is much, much better. And we're going much better about the resources and that kind of stuff. But that's something that comes to mind for me, at least.
Awesome. Are there any plans to use a .NET runtime anywhere instead of Mono?
Not sure, to be honest. I think, it's already consolidated now because Mono was this entire separate thing, and now they already managed to put it together. And we're kind of figuring out which one you should use. And I think, if we really want to make it everywhere, I'm not even sure if that's possible, because Mono is kind of like the cross-platform implementation for all this. So should we say, like, is Mono going to be, is .NET Runtime going to replace Mono, or is Mono slowly going to replace .NET Runtime? I'm not really sure at that level of detail what the kind of like technicalities are there, but we're all one happy family now. And, as long as it runs on every platform, we're happy.
Yeah, that's true. Are bindings available for Crypto Token Kit in the Appleverse, or is that one we'll have to use to roll ourselves?
I have no clue, to be honest. Tweet this at me and I'll make sure to find out, but I have no clue at this time. I think we have, like, on the Android side at least, a lot of binding libraries, but that's also hard to maintain because a lot of updates are coming out there. So, I don't know. Tweet at me.
Awesome. How is it pronounced?
Doesn't matter anymore because we're losing the name.
So MAUI.
Yeah, exactly. MAUI. No, I think there's some different versions out there, and I think I once had a comment on one of my YouTube videos that some person said that I'm the only person that can pronounce Xamarin correctly, but I don't know.
It doesn't matter. Again, one big happy family.
As long as I know what you tried to say, then that's fine.
Yeah. So we have a WPF developer now migrating to MAUI. Is it possible to develop WPF app using .NET MAUI?
So as long as WinUI can be used for WPF, I think WPF is still alive. So I think, you might be able to make something happen there. But to be very honest, like, Windows is kind of like my least developed platform. I'm more of a iOS person myself than Android than Windows. So I'm not entirely sure. But I think you can make something happen there. And it also kind of depends, like I said, if you want to work with Blazor, then you have like the Blazor Web View that you can definitely use with WPF. So that might be a path to explore if you want to modernize your applications. But like I said, we're basing our things on WinUI. So if WinUI is going to support WPF, then yes. Otherwise, no.
Good answer.
There were a lot of discussion about that in the chat about UVP and
Yeah.
UTF, and if that's are going away and be replaced by MAUI.
I mean, again, I can't predict the future, right? It kind of like it all depends. Also, I think on like how well .NET MAUI is going to land with people, how much people like it. I mean, at the end of the day, let's be honest, that's what it's mostly about, right? If we believe in this product, but it's mostly about our customers that have to believe in it, right? So if it's not going to be picked up for whatever reason, look at Windows Phone. Everyone is still crazy about Windows Phone. You too, I think, see tweets regular from all of you about Windows Phone.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, it wasn't. It didn't pick up, and then it's not sustainable to keep investing in it. From like Microsoft, we're still a business. As much as I would like to please everyone and still create Windows phones for you to use, it's not feasible to do. So that's kind of like the same with this product, like any other product. Like if it's going to fly, we have lots of possibilities to do awesome stuff. If it's not going to fly, then we'll have to see. But I believe it will be the future. So it's going to replace all the things.
And we have a great comment. It's amazing how this project from Miguel de Casa has grown. I remember playing with Mono Touch almost 12 years ago. It is amazing, isn't it?
It's crazy. I sometimes pinch myself, like, first working at Microsoft. I mean, how did I end up here? I don't know. But also, like, if you think about, like, I was working with Xamarin Forms before I started at Microsoft and joined the actual Xamarin Forms team. And I now get to, kind of like, if I were to allow to go to the campus. But I've passed cross paths with Miguel and the other key players here. And I could just, I kind of like have to thank my career at this point to these people, right? At what they at some point thought up, invented and created. And that's really amazing and mind-blowing if you think about that from time to time.
Memories. Light and dark are cool, but what about high contrast? That's an important one.
I know that I have been implementing. So basically, light and dark is kind of supported out of the box. With like, if you switch the toggle in the OS, it will mostly just transition all the things if you don't touch anything. But you have the ability to implement your own themes altogether. So, if you want to create something high contrast with all the things that come with that, then you are absolutely able to. But I'll be very honest, we can do better with, I think, especially iOS, because this is also kind of coming down to what is supported across all platforms, right? And I think iOS has pretty good support for the high contrast stuff, and Android, not so much. So then it's hard to kind of surface that to the .NET MAUI layer, right? Because what are you going to do with settings that have absolutely no effect on Android, but they do all kinds of cool stuff on iOS? So that's kind of like our constant struggle with all of this. But it's definitely something that we need to revisit. And I implemented light and dark mode support for the platforms. So I will put this on my list right now. I'm not kidding. It's not just something I say, to revisit this, because the accessibility, like I said already a couple of times, is something that we want to focus on. And high contrast is something that is part of that. So I'm going to check up on that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Another one. How is the performance with graphic parts? Will it handle tens of thousands of line draws, for example? Or would you suggest using another system for this? That's a good question.
That's definitely a good question. So what I try to explain is that only kind of like the API is what we've abstracted now. So it translates to what the drawing libraries can do on each platform. So if the performance on the platform is fantastic, then the performance for this is also going to be fantastic. Same way, if it's not so fantastic, then it's also not so fantastic. There's of course a tiny overhead because we have these wrappers and it has to go through from C# to like the native stuff. But it should perform the same way as it does on the actual platform if you were using Objective-C or Java or whatnot. I think Skia Sharp is also one of the drawing libraries that you can choose. So that's kind of like the cross-platform one that does its own drawing thing. And I think the performance on that is pretty great. I'm fairly confident that the repositories for this have some numbers up to check up on the performance. So definitely go check that out. But I think it should be pretty good. And the same as like the actual platform drawing libraries performance. So.
Awesome. A couple of more questions. Well, a comment,
But it's
really.
not a question.
Single project is so much nicer.
Yeah, it definitely takes some used to. Like if you've been working with Xamarin Forms before, then but it's still mostly on the library maintainer side, and you've been working with multi-targeting. Because it kind of takes a different mindset because everything is in one project now, right? So you're going to either work with like the if compiler directives to create different scenarios for the different platforms, but that's going to clutter your code. So you can also work with like partial classes and partial methods, which is something I didn't even know existed before this, or just leverage the dependency injection that is now built in as well. I didn't even mention that, but the dependency injection is now built in exactly the same way as like ASP.NET. So just register your dependencies. You can write that in your platform code, right? So in the platform folders, write platform-specific code in there, wrap it in an interface, register that, and it will inject automatically, and you can do it like that. So it takes a slightly different mindset in some scenarios, but if you're used to it, then it's pretty amazing. Absolutely.
Cool.
I think we have time for at least one more, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Let's try it. What are the improvements coming with MAUI when it comes to accessibility? We touched on that a little bit. Xamarin still has plenty of bugs. Does MAUI require less or no custom renderers to achieve better accessibility for users?
Thank you so much, Brian, for this question. I hope that you were here when I showed very briefly like the properties that we have implemented for .NET MAUI now. You can implement those properties on every visual element, I think. And my very great colleague Rachel knows all about the accessibility. So if you have any specific questions, please reach out and I will put you in touch with her. One thing I will say, you say like Xamarin has plenty of bugs. Because we find this accessibility stuff so important, we have been porting a lot to either the Xamarin Community Toolkit or still making changes in Xamarin Forms, because make no mistake, Xamarin Forms is still getting service releases each month for like a year or longer after .NET MAUI launches. So we're not abandoning that. And especially the accessibility bugs, I'm sneaking them in. But what is happening there right now is that there is a feature flag that you have to enable for all the accessibility bugs basically to suddenly go away, or to get all of our new advancements there. So that's something that you might want to check out. If you don't know how, please reach out to me because I would love to help you with that. Because if you still see areas that we are missing, that we can learn from that and get that at least in .NET MAUI before we launch. So if you would follow up with me on that, that would be great. But we're doing great investments there, and it should work better.
Awesome. Thank you. That is all questions we have time for. Anyone who did not get their questions answered, please reach out to Gerald. He was kind to offer his help.
Yeah, I'll be in the chat for a little bit as well. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to speak with us,
Absolutely. Thank you for having me the first session. I'm so honored. I can't look forward to, I think Stacy is next. So
yes, she is.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye.